Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary and I'm bringing you a replay on Tal'Darim Altar featuring a HSLAdmin on the red side of Terran and Marty or mARRRRRty. He could be a pirate Protoss. I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna go with Marty just because I like Back to the Future. However, I do know that these guys, I believe, are Silver League on Tal'Darim. Red and blue means it's probably on the latter. Both of them being rather mannered. Aspects of Tal'Darim Altar, most of you guys know, pretty narrow choke leading into the natural, which is rather well defended. Not really in the open, just got a ramp here and a narrow pathway leading over to the third. Silver, that's right. So Marty and Admin are both in silver, which makes me think that even though, everybody starts lower on the brackets, works their way up, doesn't necessarily mean this is going to be a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. Comparable skills doesn't mean you have to micro 1,000 times a minute for it to be a good game. Just a good build order is all that's necessary. Speaking of build orders, Admin's dropping down his first barracks while Marty has his first gateway on the way. No early gas for either player means that there's not a lot of early tech on the way. Maybe we'll see some pressure. Pressure in and of itself is pretty hard to come by on Tal'Darim Altar just because of the long pathway that both players have to get to pass over in order to get to the other player's base. However, Marty sitting on that early probe is going to get some good scouting, heading off into the right corner, or correct corner, rather, so that he can scout Admin's base. Admin's leaving that supply depot down, so Marty should be able to squeeze his way in. Nope, he's content just to spot the barracks on the front, knows that that's where Admin is, and so he'll pull back. Maybe Marty's looking to drop a pylon, maybe deny that natural, or maybe over in this corner right here to play in some early drop pressure or warp gate pressure. Cybernetics core on the way means that warp gate's probably what he's going to be looking to get early on. With that first gas, he's definitely going to have enough Vespin saved up for it. Little back and forth action between the two workers. It looks like Marty's got the advantage as Admin's having to pull back. However, Marty sends his probe right up and it runs right past two Marines. And I think that's going to be it for the probe as that Marine watches him go down. Orbital on the way, as well as a first stalker for Marty. With another gateway, those two stalkers are going to be excellent, especially with that cybernetics core researching warp gate. However, Marty really needs to get a pylon placed so that the warp ends can come much closer to the base, so that whatever pressure he decides to do, especially as Admin starts to take his natural, that pressure needs to come fast in order to punish Admin for being so greedy. Marty seems to be content to play off of one base for now as he's throwing down a third gateway. We could be seeing a 4-gate from Marty, but with the absence of that pylon, that 4-gate will be delayed slightly in showing up. However, Admin with only one barracks down isn't really going to have enough production power to produce enough units to hold off the 3-gate pressure from Marty. Even more stalkers continuing to churn out as we have a pylon getting ready to be placed on the forward ground. Marty's moving stalkers out. Stalkers actually move faster than Marines, so even though they have comparable ranges, I believe the Stalker has a little bit longer range than the Marines. Even though they're pretty comparable units, the Stalker with their movement speed advantage means that you can really snipe those Marines down by kiting them. Especially with 3 Stalkers to a handful of Marines. That's not enough Marines by any stretch of the imagination. You really need some Marauders out there with some slow, maybe some siege tanks, maybe some bunkers. Really, Admin's got the slight advantage here because he has a expansion and Marty does not. Those Stalkers were on the move command, meaning that SCV is going to be able to slide right in and get a pretty good scout off before that Stalker finish was warping. He spots the Twilight Council, which means that maybe we can see some blink. Admin putting down a scan here would have been much better because that SCV was just right here. It could be though that Admin didn't succeed in clicking on that Twilight console as it was warping in, so all he saw was that a building was being made, and he needed to scan there to ensure that he knew what building was being made. A reactor going down in the factory and a starport going up in admin's main. Starport's probably going to lift off and take the factory's place once that reactor's done, and we can see some medevacs coming out to support the heavy marine play that he's got. One attack upgrade on the way. You can probably see this tech lab that's on the bunkers right here is going to be used to upgrade those marines, maybe get stem, maybe get combat shields. It just depends on which way admin wants to roll. 3 gate into Robo for Marty. Maybe he's worried about some tanks. Maybe he's worried about just the heavy marine presence. If admin decides to go with a large force of marines, then those Colossus that Marty can get out of the Robo is going to be very, very handy. It's taken off that large chunk of people. Speaking of handy, Blink is just about ready to be completed. If Marty gets a scout on the upper ground with this pylon placed behind, he's got a nice little pincer movement. These stalkers are able to fire up the hill even though they don't have perfect scouting ability, and they'd be able to blink behind enemy lines. Those stalkers and those handful of zealots are more than handy enough to deal with the small cluster of marines, and these medevacs come out just a little bit too late to support those marines. If those medevacs had been there a couple seconds earlier, maybe this could have gone differently for admin. Admin forgetting that this orbital command can lift off, and if it had lifted off right when that attack had happened, he would have had it to safety. It would have taken no damage, even if as it was coming under fire he could have lifted it off, and the orbital still would have escaped. As it is now with these SCVs repairing, he's just wasting money. He needs to pull these SCVs back, get them behind to the other mineral lines so that they can defend. This observer's popping out of the Robo back in the main base as Marty grabs his natural. Observer comes in, takes a look around. This is a pretty intimidating force for what Marty's facing. So these stalkers go ahead, pop off, and blink to behind enemy lines, deal with the handful of marines, while a handful of other stalkers deal with the slight wall off. Once these marine falls, Marty's going to be able to swing up into the SCVs. This is looking really bad for admin. Even with the support of these medevacs, there's just not enough marines to bring them down, as Marty uses some excellent blink micro to keep these handful of stalkers that lose their shields alive. There goes admin, GGing. It was a good game. Marty's displaying some really good micro, and admin was just a little bit too greedy and didn't really support his units enough, as well as you can see the 700 minerals sitting around. That just means that there wasn't enough production going on. Maybe these barracks could have come early, maybe 1 or 2 more. The add-ons definitely could have come early, and the upgrades need just to come out. A more clear build order for admin was what was necessary. Marty had a plan. He went 3 gate into Robo with that blink. Robo didn't really come in handy besides that observer, but it was still enough to give him that edge to allow him to blink in. In reality, these stalkers just could have put more pressure up here and then blinked off into this way, picked off these 2 attachments, and that would have been all it wrote. Very good game for both players. That's it for me. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. I'll see you guys around.